Hi. Okay, I'm just waiting for my guest, Jason.
Yes.
Hello,
You
love.
look so cute.
Stop it. In a pandemic.
You got that pandemic flair.
Well, you have to do this is probably the first like normal outfit I've worn in like a month.
Hilarious.
This is like a special occasion.
Right. No, I totally understand. In fact, I saw I nearly had a panic attack, but I saw Rita Ora from home doing like she had full makeup on and
So I'm not sure if it's my connection or yours. I'm gonna be patient. It's kind of a little bit glitchy. So I didn't catch the full Rita Ora uh, story, but
oh, well, there's really not too much of a story, but two things. One, I took you off Wi-Fi
oh, okay.
because I think it's better to not be on Wi-Fi. And then two, Rita Ora was just in full makeup and an outfit on at home, and I was like, Rita, no,
Right, right,
don't do that,
exactly.
Rita. Come on, lipstick maybe, full
Sure,
makeup.
yeah. So
Come on.
yeah, no, I have a lot of respect for a lot of celebrities who are doing a lot of these lives and things like that, and they're in like sweatpants
Yep.
and messy top knot and
Yep.
don't care.
Don't
So
care. It's about time. I mean, I feel like people that are trying to maintain like some gorgeousness is
yeah,
just come on. Don't
I know, right? Drop the act.
drop the
We're,
act. Drop
we're all
the act.
this scrub together. So while we have some people hop on and join, so you just got back from like a ranch. Okay? So a ranch, right? I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah, don't. I'll come after you.
Right? Yeah.
Um,
How dare you, ranch?
yes,
So,
you're safe
so
by saying a plot of land, a plot of large land.
you were somewhere else
Yeah.
outside.
Yep.
So what were you up to? What were you doing? How did that go down?
Yeah.
Like,
So I've lived in California for about 14 years now. No, 15 years. And California is massive, and its farmlands and ranch lands and deep forests are very different and unique because there's lush forests that are moist and luxurious. Then there's the beach towns, and then there's the pine trees, and then you've got like Northern California's big redwoods, and then you have more inward in California, you have these forests that have some indigenous plants to California and some that were just brought here like in the 1900s. It's very fascinating stuff. But I have friends that have a ranch, a couple of friends that have ranches, plural, up about an hour and a half or so north of Los Angeles. And in that, there's Carpinteria, Ojai, Goleta, Santa Paula. These are places that are they're pretty unique because each house has 70 plus acres of land. And so this trip we did a lot of things. In fact, we basically plotted her land out for a massive garden. So we weed whacked a ton of forest, um, and that was harder than you think.
yeah, right. Totally.
Yeah, really, really intense. And then we tilled the land, and we did that topless. We did topless tilling where we didn't have any shirts on. Um, and we posted a blurred version of that for people, but it's because of the law, no nipple law,
Right. That's the firm law. Yes.
firm law, no nipples. And
Good.
then we foraged for chanterelle mushrooms in Goleta Forest,
Nice.
and like came with like bucket loads, Catherine, like insanely huge ones. And what's fascinating about foraging is it's so rewarding.
Well, yeah, you're doing the work for food that you are then going to eat. You're going through the entire process, and then you have that appreciation too for where your food. I mean, there's no better way to do it, right? Than you
No
are
better way.
full experience and you appreciate it because you work so damn hard for it. So
So hard. And I don't know if you've ever foraged for chanterelle mushrooms before
I'm not yet
in Brooklyn or something.
common pastime in New York?
Common pastime.
Yeah.
It's a really fun and adventurous way to do things because they are mostly by oak trees. So
Okay.
you kind of keep an eye out on the oak, and then with that oak, there's also poison oak that's everywhere.
Okay.
So I'm very sensitive in skin, so they wrapped me up pretty intensely, and it's it's warm, but you get this rush because these mushrooms, they grow underground and every couple of years, so it's not every year in this particular field, and it's massive. This space that we were at is massive, and it's a friend's ranch. And what's great about it is it's a hunt. It's a legitimate hunt, and so you go with your buckets and you split and you kind of keep track of everybody and you look for this very small like bit of the mushroom, and once you find that, you end up like uncovering it, and it's this huge like massive chanterelle mushroom that you only saw a little speck of, and then like that's the area, and so you just go from plot land to plot land. It's really cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, next time, when I can get out,
Yeah.
that's on the list of things to do.
Yeah, it's great. And we took the buckets and went to the farmer's market and did like 1800 style trading. Like we legitimately were like
Like a
we have
bargain.
contract. Yeah. We have
That's,
for asparagus and blueberries and strawberries and dates and things where you just don't use cash.
that's incredible. So wait, so what's like the trade rate? Like, how do you figure that out? You're like dates to chanterelles. Like, how does that convert?
Yeah, well, our assessment was like dates aren't really high on our list, but we do love bacon wrap dates, and the sweet and savory texture of it is something that we can make at home. So we kind of we thought a pound for a pound of dates. So we were, the market price probably in Goleta and a little bit north Santa Ynez is probably like $21 per pound clean. I like to deliver them dirty because I think it gives people an extra job to do, extra connection to the mushroom.
Right.
To dust it off and to like feel the meatiness of it. Plus it keeps it preserved, which I didn't recognize. The dirt on it would keep the preservation from getting crusty or moldy. And but in LA's market, I can sell them for 25 a pound dirty, which I did, which because they're like LA, yeah. So when it's clean itself, yeah. But then I had people send me pictures of what they cooked and like recipes off the chain, and that's what I think is like the most rewarding, is not only feeding yourself but seeing other people feed their families with something that they can't access right now. I didn't realize like they're not like easily available at the store. I wasn't recognizing that when I was going for it, so it was cool.
Amazing.
Really cool.
Yay. I'm so glad it was successful and safe and fun and rewarding.
Yeah, no poison oak. I didn't break out at all, knock on wood. I was really careful. I cleaned everything, but nothing.
Amazing. So whether people are hopping on, hopping off, whatever, this is going to go on stories, and then I'll do an edit as opposed, so people can watch it whenever. Doesn't matter. But the whole point of it kind of was I have a podcast. It's called IRATE, and the premise of that is I interview different business owners in the hospitality space, mostly food and beverage, and we come through the good and the bad, the ugly of online ratings and review sites, and how that affects business owners. And it's kind of like a therapy session, and it's a lot of fun. And I do those in person. I feel like there's no better way to do it a lot of times. I mean, now everything is pivoting to digital. So what I thought would be really cool is to have these on a format like this, but expand it out through that whole umbrella of business owners, that's self-employed, in different kind of verticals that really have a lot of either customer facing or, audiences like that, which is of course where you come in. And so, and I'm sorry, I didn't give you a proper introduction. So
yeah, no one, who cares?
It feels very like Brady Bunch-esque, like seeing you like, oh, there you are down there. And comedian, writer, producer, climate change activist, and
mushroom forager.
mushroom forager, topless, what is this? Rager.
Killing
Uh,
of the
add that to the resume. Um, so I want to give you, you know, the platform to kind of talk about, you know, and so, and then sidebar, and how everything like now is kind of being affected, because everybody's being affected in different capacities, um, however that is. And so I think it does two things. It gives people either that sense of community, saying like, oh, it's not just me. I'm not alone. I get to hear other stories of people going through whatever it is as well. And then it can be also an eye-opening, you know, kind of moment for some people who may be, you know, on a more fortunate side, or, you know, think business as usual, and they don't kind of understand, you know, what other people are going through and how that affects other industries and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we're here.
Right.
So I would love for you to kind of go back a little bit and run down maybe what a typical day, week, month, you know, in the life of you, and work for you was kind of like, and how that's changed now.
Yeah, sure. It hasn't changed. I'm just traveling all over the world. Well, I am a professional comedian, and a speaker, in the climate space as well, also comedic as best we can. So
Gotta
prior
times like these. Yeah.
Gotta laugh. And you know, and I had been at this, my profession as a female headlining comedian, going on now 14 years. And I would say in the last 3 to 4 years, it's really picked up. And that's considering how much it took me to get there when I was doing more sketch comedy on TV networks like MTV or VH1. Just little hits every now and then, because I think a lot of people, when they hear entertainer in general, it's very blanket to people. They don't really recognize that it's a profession, and that there's a lot of puzzle pieces you have to mix together to make a really good salary, enough to survive and take your family, you know, on a vacation to, you know, Disneyland, if you prefer, if that's your thing.
Right.
But my, you know, my day-to-day life of me was, I had picked up a really great gig, with Carnival Cruise Line. You may know them as being the cause of the pandemic.
Hide in more ways than one.
I personally love it, because I sent emails in December being like, this COVID thing doesn't feel right. And they're like, keep the party going.
Like,
Which
yeah, lawsuit.
I can't wait. I have all my paperwork ready, to go, and every email where they're like, it's nothing to worry about. But that said, you know, the job itself as an entertainer is you, create a brand for yourself as a comedian. And I was working really heavily in the Department of Equality, Justice, and Climate. And I keep in that space because I have a background in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was born and raised there. That's the Industrial Revolution town. It was known for, you know, heavy amounts of smog, pollution, steel, and coal. And that was my life growing up. So I was very familiar with that space, and that blue collar space as well. So my comedy came from that place, and, you know, that blue collar kickback to trying to be a little more LA. And I love that mix, because people, especially in more red states, get very much set on the idea that those in blue states have this like bank account that's never ending, especially if you're an entertainer. And I think what my comedy brings is a unity to both of those classes, and to all of the classes, because I don't see a benefit in my comedy being offensive to someone who's right wing, MAGA, even Nazi. I want to find a way to get into their psyche.
Got it. Nazis.
I lean heavily towards Nazis, because I think that so much satirical comedy is out there, and it has never been my thing. What has been my thing is that really honest, I'm not perfect, here's why beats. And I think that relatability across the board works. And when you've traveled as much as I have to small clubs and big clubs and mid-sized clubs, you start to see how human beings laugh what they're laughing at, what they get really pissed off at, what words they would prefer you not say in this particular town versus what
going to be so different, right? You have to
everything.
like tailor your whole act to each, because right, like
yeah. And that's, you know, and that's restaurant business as well. Think of it like, you know, what you have to tailor to one person's personality versus another person's personality, because all human beings are different. And a lot of people throw their hands up. I don't care if people like me. I don't care if they like my stuff. That's wonderful. That's great. I personally have a vomit attack if there's like a group of people in my show that don't like what I'm saying, because I'm not trying to bend my beliefs in any way, shape, or form. What I'm trying to do is find a universal platform that we all can laugh at. And if you can walk away with a little bit of what my brain has been picking, then go for it. Because we all see the same news threads. We cover the same digital information. I just want my point of view of it, which I know is unique to me and why I've been working, is to come out. And so Carnival Cruise Line took me on, and that job was my ideal. I mean, it's 3,000 people on a cruise ship. Yeah. And, you know, they're from everywhere. And you know, some people will absolutely hate you, and some people will love you, and some people will give you advice, and some people never want to see you again.
Sure. And then you're like, well, you're only stuck with me on the boat for the next week, so it's fine.
Yeah, sometimes weeks, sometimes 3 days. I mean, I've definitely hid from some people before. I heard like a teenager one time be like, my mom said she was hysterical. And another teenager was like, my mom said she was terrible. And I was like, fuck both your moms.
Find me at the buffet.
Yeah.
Do you have any like horror stories?
I think every horror story prior to this was me learning how to navigate the space, because cruise ship space is a vacation, and yes, they're all there to have a good time, but a lot of them have been on cruise ships their whole lives, and a lot of them have not seen women, specifically a blonde woman who looks 22 when I'm 36. And so finding a space that gets them to listen rather than dial back is really important to me. And that goes down to like the way that I command the stage versus if I'm having a bad day and I'm feeling a little bit more insecure, like I have to leave that at the door and do enough prep to get on stage. So there's moments where I didn't, you know, in the very beginning, I was kind of like, I can wing it. I've got this. I know what I'm doing. And it was just like crickets maybe for a whole time, or you see like half the ship walk out of the room and you're like, what?
Oh no.
Yeah. But then you pick back, but you have shows every single night, and then you don't have the time to figure out what was me. You have, what you need to do is go back and listen to it again, and what joke didn't work. Why don't they want to hear about environment? How do I, you know, I've been called a snowflake twice, which is always my favorite, because I'm like, well, a snowflake is one of a kind.
Right. I'm original. Thank you.
But I also wanted to work within that man's space to see why he thought being cognizant of the planet is considered a weakened state of mind, because we can still work and operate and boost economy, but be cognizant of what we're doing to like inflate the heat around the world and things like that. So finding ways to do the jokes is what my challenge is, and always has been. But yeah, you know, as of late, when I was on, you know, things started to pick up on the ship pretty intensely. As an entertainer, you're allowed to go anywhere, but then we started to receive emails that we weren't allowed to go anywhere right now, just to kind of stay away from the guests at the time. And that's when I started to see it pick up a bit. And then I remember like our final day I was in Honduras, and at that time I was like, get me off the ship. Like this is exploding. This is now, we're at March 10th, and I'm in Honduras on a massive cruise ship, and I'm just getting text messages like, you need to get off the boat. You need to get off the boat. And I'm like, first of all, it's a ship.
Right. Where am I going?
Yeah, I'm not going on a boat. And second of all, like, I am an entertainer, and my job is to make fun of almost all the things. And so, and then they, you know, they told us we couldn't make coronavirus jokes. But they didn't say Corona beer jokes, and that gets you just as much in the door as you want.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. So, you know, they swabbed me. They checked fever. It was about 2 hours before they let us off the ship in Honduras. And when I got off, I felt this instant sigh of relief. And then within an hour, I got an email that live shows for Carnival are going to be put on pause for April and May. And that's when I started to feel this like woomph woomph feeling where, oh my God, I am an independent worker and independent contractor, performer, and, in the process of getting my LLC to be a business.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Because the government doesn't necessarily support this craft. Not that they don't, but it's not an unemployment thing. You don't pay into it.
Yeah.
And whatever the loopholes are, that instant, oh no. But luckily I have London in a week, and should I still go to London? And then like 2 days later, I made the call that it just isn't safe to go to London. So that gig got canceled, and then another gig got canceled, and then Carnival came back maybe a couple weeks later saying, your Alaska trip, I was supposed to be in Alaska right now, which would have been great and will be great when we can go back, but Canada shut their borders. So, the cruising industry, when you think of it from port to port and how so many people operate in the cruising world down to borders of the ocean, when they get locked down, the entire thing gets, you get redirected. So some people had to be on the ship not working. Some people had to be, they had to go to the Philippines so they can debark, because that's the only place that was letting some people debark. So it was like really fascinating to watch these places shut down to protect their people. And it's not just cruises, by the way. It's like down to a busy nightclub or a restaurant where people are touching saliva. It's like all of these are things that are going to be deeply affected by what we're doing. And as a performer, we use one microphone. Everybody uses that microphone. That's the microphone of the show. Shake hands after shows. I started to do this thing called chicken wing. I'm sure you've heard of it, where before they told us.
What is this?
Yeah, it's just after a show, instead of shaking people's hands, you chicken wing them.
Oh, yeah, sure. Like a little elbow bump. Yeah.
Chicken wing, yeah. And then they took that away from us.
Much better. That's
chicken wing. And the people at the cruise ship loved it. Like, imagine 75-year-old women who just couldn't wait to chicken wing me outside. It was like, chicken wing! Adorable. Yeah, it was really sweet. And then, the shift has begun. So you had asked what has changed. Well, the first 2 weeks were depressing a little bit like, wow, I've never been off stage this long before. Yes, I can pivot, but what's the point? I wanted to see where things laid. Like, I was scared like everybody else, and I wanted to see what this was going to do for, how deeply you could get it, what it could look like if you got it. And I'm immune compromised, so I wanted to take it seriously, because you just never know. And even though I'm a comic and very much kind of like, everything is funny to me, when it comes to infectious airborne diseases, I draw a line.
Right. It's not that funny anymore.
Yeah, I can't put my finger on it, but it's just not as funny as anything else. But in due time, like anything else, it will be. So my shift came in that I began to rearrange my space so my office was my home. So I have my audio equipment and things that I would need for interviews and podcasts and Skype performance shows and Zoom shows. I was heavily against it before, but now I'm seeing that that's really just because, to me, live performance is best live with people and human beings in that same space and that energy of matter. But in the real world right now, it's not safe. And until it is safe, it's not worth it for comics to risk that, because we will get creative down the line. We will, if there is a space on the line where A, there's a vaccine, or B, there's a time where we can start to put a little bit less people in a show, then great. But until then, we shouldn't stop creating. We shouldn't stop. You should take your time for your depression and the sadness of what that life looked like, but pick it back up and create a daily regimen and a schedule that really did mirror what I was already doing, which for me was always running. I think you're a runner too, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you what though, right now I feel like I have a tendonitis like flare up. But yes, it to be determined at a later moment once it goes down. But yes.
Yeah, so for me, it's, I jog, I do yoga, and I take boxing sessions.
Nice.
So that stuff can be done in my home now. It's going to be a little bit harder work for me to get myself to do it, because there's something luxurious about having a cruise ship gym that overlooks the Pacific.
Right.
But I guess a jog around the old neighborhood will do.
Yeah. You do, right?
Yeah.
That's all we
Yeah.
like left with
And
now.
yeah, and now like I'm learning, you know, I've always been someone that cooks, but now I'm really learning how to explore in that space and have my meals prepped and ready so they don't take a lot of my time up, so I can go back down to the office and get more work done. And you know, Earth Week is Earth Week. I'm calling it Earth Week, but it's Earth Day. Is this?
It,
Yeah, it should be.
it could be, it's Earth year, decade.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
Earth Decade.
Yeah.
So that I'm a ton of stuff lined up for my slate this week, which is great news for Extinction Rebellion, which is a huge, massive worldwide globalization for the environment, and we're doing a defundation. So we're doing basically a telethon, comedic telethon, to get people to pledge to get their money out of banks, divestments of any sorts that are, you know, fueling fossil fuels.
Right.
Because right now it's kind of pointless to be funding fossil fuels. Nobody can go anywhere.
Right.
Gas ain't that big of a deal, and you know that's the thing about the Montanas and the Virginias and West Virginias and the Oklahomas, the people that aren't deeply affected by the virus yet, and hopefully won't be, are seeing this as, you know, this is such a fluke, this is such a this is such a that, what's the big deal, let's get going. But the real truth is it hit the outskirts of it. We're trying to avoid it going inward, because once it gets to that space, it's like, how do you control those areas? And you know, the amount of people in Idaho and Iowa versus what's in California and New York, you know, it's that's the city of it, that's the city life. So it's interesting. And now, you know, not having to travel, I will say this, what has changed a lot was, man, when I got on that airplane from Honduras back to Los Angeles, that airplane was spick and span. Like every cracker crumb was picked up, all the seats were wiped down. I personally was like, this is what they needed to start cleaning.
Always.
Yeah, to start cleaning things, because I think as humans we kind of, and look, I'm a country girl. I dirt in my fingernails a lot of the time when I'm working in the mud, and I'm not squeamish when it comes to germs. And I've always been really the kind of person that was like, my immune system has the ability to work these things off, and I'm no baby. But at the same time, I don't know who I could hurt. Yeah. There's just not enough information.
Totally.
So now I'm doing these things, and my days are fun, but it's weird. It's definitely strange.
Yeah. Do you feel like you have to do like a lot of, you know, self-motivating and really kind of propel yourself forward, because, you know, now, correct me if I'm wrong, are you putting out this material totally on your own, or are these part of projects that have then shifted to digital?
I think it's a combination, because the stuff I'm doing on my own is, I've made a point to, people are asking for me to do live stand-up once a week. It's fine, I don't mind doing that, but I'd prefer to do live stand-up and then edit a video together where the audience is people's pets. I really like that. It works for me. It's fun. It's a fun project. I try to put one out weekly or bi-weekly, and that's my thing. Yeah. And it's not mind-blowingly different than somebody else would have figured out. It's just what works for me and what makes me happy, because otherwise stand-up it doesn't exist. You know, I could do shows for some friends, but I also know that it's within my power to be creative in my own way. So these other projects, which is, you know, Earth Day oriented, are things that were already in the slate of what I was working on, because I was going to London for a climate cocktailing event, which is, you know, about 300 some people meet, and I was going to perform for them. And I perform in that space because I did a show for Funny or Die on Amazon Prime called The New American Road Trip, where we took a cross-country road trip in an electric car. And we did it with a Chevy Bolt, and we knocked it out in the middle of America and filmed these pieces for Funny or Die, and the more serious pieces that covered what America was already doing in 2018 to like pivot towards a more sustainable economy. And again, I can't stress this enough. It's not about eliminating people in the coal world and the steel world. It's about blending the two together and finding a medium that balances things. It's, you know, it's tough. There are people that just don't want to hear it. You're going to take the money out of our accounts. You're going to, you know, we're not going to have food to feed our kids. But right now we're seeing pretty intensely how Mother Nature is healing itself while people are locked indoors. And you can't deny that. I mean, like the air quality here in LA is unbelievable. Pennsylvania is seeing air quality they haven't seen in years. It's stuff that we don't want it to be like, oh, it took COVID to change the climate. That's not what this is about. This is just showing you that in India, people were convinced that it was the way that where India was placed geographically and its climate, that it was never going to see blue skies. And then when they put everybody inside for a couple of days, blue skies were being seen. And there are children that grew up that never saw blue skies in India. And I think that's what is so interesting, is to clock these stories and use them as evidence in the court of law, because it's not just about speaking up. It's about going in, voting, and changing policy. Because to me, nothing is funnier to me than us having the ability to vote, but like only going that far. And then if we don't get it, just kind of backing off. Like, I think if anything, COVID taught me that like I'm very well equipped to be a politician, extraordinarily equipped to be one. Yeah, I mean, we all are equipped to do it. I mean, it's not about being a politician, it's about policy. How do you want your community, your town to live? And what works in that small town, and you start to work within that space, you'll get broadened and bigger. And then that's when you run for president, when you've seen things work in that space. And I'm going to run on the topless tilling platform.
Fabulous.
Because has anybody yet? Yeah.
Oh.
So I'm learning through all of this how to keep order. And you had said, like, you need to be pumped up. Of course, because there are some days where you're feeling really confident and strong in this digital comedy self-employed space. And then there could be a week where you hear from other people in LA that we'll never be in a room again until September together. We might not shoot things again until September. We might not have hair and makeup anymore, which again, fine for me, not probably fine for Rita Ora.
Well, I was about to say, you know, but she seems to be doing it by herself all right. So
I mean, if you've had hair and makeup done your whole life, you know how to put it on.
Right. Bless.
Right. So yeah, bless. So, and then, you know, in the interim, reading, really taking advantage of my Los Angeles library card online.
Oh.
That has been a real pump me up. Like books that I just have heard about, never had the time to read, or like things, environmental policy, like even environmental policy law for dummies, like ordering that book and reading it so I can understand some things whenever I go out and talk about it, because I'm not a professional in this space, but I'm a professional speaker. So to be an advocate for good climate policy across the board is to be knowledgeable in those worlds. So, and especially knowing Los Angeles like the back of my hand, this city has put like an immense amount of effort into the Green New Deal version of it in LA. And watching that unfold in the last 15 years has been like mind blowing, because, you know, I see the way that trams work in some cities that would be killer here. Or I see the way that above ground town cars in San Francisco could transport people. Now they can't smash everybody on like you used to.
Right.
But starting to see how the world will travel again with COVID in mind is fascinating to me. Solving the problem, very much an engineer brain in that space. That's why I think as much as it is sad and scary, it is an exciting space for innovation.
Yeah.
And for people to come out and be creative in their own way. And that's why, you know, TikTok's great, but get back on TikTok and change some policy.
Have people been practicing and learning now? And but by the way, most of them, no shade to TikToks and dancing, most of them will all look the same. If you can do this and like this.
You can do it.
You did it.
Yeah.
You put it on,
Yeah.
recorded, you did it.
Yeah, and I feel like kind of a grandpapa that doesn't want the internet back in the 1990s, but like I don't want to go on it. People will send me really good ones, and I believe me, I think they're great. They're
Okay.
amazing. But I know that's not what they're doing the whole day, although from what I've seen with friends testing it out, they do spend an ample amount of time figuring it out. No judgment. If you can make a living and a profit off of it, by all means go. But I just think right now you're pivoting in different spaces, and like, you know, in this job as an entertainer and a performer, you're essentially also a writer and a copywriter. So for me, it doesn't just stop at live performance. And that's what I had to remind myself whenever I came back from Carnival and the gigs passed. It is also a go back on LinkedIn with your great, I have every profile is amazing and locked, and every resume is super tightened, and go on and see who needs ebook editors and copy editors right now, and who needs people to maybe even write some characters online or go and re-edit some stuff. So I had done some work for Headspace, the meditation app, almost like instantly. So I had edited 5 scripts for them, and that is about you know, really just being a chameleon in the space of entertainment, being, you know, your own CEO, and recognizing that each challenge, though completely scary, makes you want to throw your hands up like, what is even the point of life?
Right.
There is no point. There's no point. There is no point except to,
Spoiler.
yeah, spoiler alert, have an incredible time, eat great food, meet wonderful people, travel as best you can safely, and then hopefully you don't get kicked the bucket too soon, but it does happen. And I've also learned with the people that have kicked the bucket too soon that are close to me that, you know, in honor of them, I'm going to kick butt and have the best time I can with what I'm working with. And don't, you know, my advice to anybody working right now is try not to be married to what you thought things were going to be.
Yeah.
It's really, and this is very headspacey, but it's about the release and true surrender of what is going on in a way. That will bring a real sense of like, you'll never sleep better when you just give up trying to control these elements. It really, there's no way that I could gauge how stand-up is going to look in a couple of years, or what my album's going to do right now, and is comedy ever going to return. Well, I'm not just a comedian, so I don't have to just worry about that. Yeah. I was already working in a space that was going to be necessary forever, and that is climate. Yeah. And I bring a comedic element to it, but it doesn't mean that that's the only thing I could bring to the table.
Right.
And it's really reassessing your skills, looking and seeing what your strong suits are and what you are interested in truly. Like food, you and I know food and like the gift of gab are 2 phenomenal things to have right now in this digital age. So if that's where you want to stay, you can do just fine in that space. Right. And why we provide for ourselves is because, you know, we're a capitalist nation. We are taught and trained to continuously provide and keep ourselves accountable for how much we succeed, and push and push and push. And a lot of people have obstacles that are changing every day, down to disabilities, down to car accidents that happen that change people's lives. So each day is kind of a reassessment of what you can make a little bit more improvement the next day. Right. That's the intention. And this stuff, you know, it gets, you can get bored very easily if you're not thinking what projects excite you. Because a lot of people that are working right now, thankfully, you included, get to go in and it's cut down. Yeah. But you're finding excitement in whatever interesting marshmallow recipe you're bringing to the table that people can love and laugh and enjoy. That's creative enough. You know, it's not like, you know, bless their heart, like a mom and pop tobacco store is probably not banging out a lot of tobacco right now because people don't really have that creative skill to interest others online. So God, man, people that refuse the internet are really hating their lives right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all about be like, adapting, right? And pivoting and just being flexible. Because if you're too firm on what it is that you're doing and what you want to do, and there's no other way around it,
Yeah.
and something like this happens, or I mean, look, anything can happen at any time, right?
Mm.
Just even if there wasn't a pandemic right now, and the company that you were working for did a massive amount of layoffs, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just everyday things. It's about just being able to kind of like just pivot and think of things that can work for you, and you know, whatever it is. That's where, you know, sometimes even hobbies come into play, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
doing is like a side hustle or a hobby just for fun. Well, is that something that you can actually do and monetize off of?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just interesting to see a lot of people, you know, who were doing certain things, working in, you know, manufacturing facilities, or making, you know, textiles and clothes, and you know, not a lot of people are buying clothes right now because they're all wearing the same damn pajamas they've been in for the past like 3.5 weeks. uh,
Mm-hmm.
so they pivot and they say, people need face masks, I'm making
Mm.
now, churning those out. And that's like what it is. And it's that whole fight or flight thing too, I think. You know, some people are, and it's hard, you know, like we can't say like you have to fight. Like a lot of people can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it puts a lot of other people in that position where they say, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to just, you know, just sit here and wait and see what happens? Or am I going to try and figure something out and maybe try something different that I love doing? And like, who knows? Because we don't know at this point what life's exactly going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, you know, there's nothing like um, a live audience and stand up. I mean,
Yeah.
it's that's what it is. And in the world of hospitality and restaurants, that's what that is.
Yeah. The
It's
dining
full
experience.
experience, right?
Yeah.
Because you know, if you're not doing that, you're doing exactly what you're doing now, which is,
Yeah.
you know, watching videos how to cook and do these things, and you're in your own home. But you know, those kind of industries that we're both in, where that's kind of a lot of the experience, it's going to be really interesting because it is such uncharted territory right now. We don't know
Yeah.
what it's going to look like on the other side. So being able to pivot in the meantime is incredible and
Mm-hmm.
going to keep you sane. And
Yeah.
and hope.
Yeah. That's, I mean, you gotta stay sane. And when you're feeling like you're not sane, I'm very lucky and blessed. I make my bathroom into a spa. I steam that thing up. I treat it like I am at like the most bougie spa in the world. And I spend the day getting the depressives out of me because that they do happen. And I'm not, and for rightful reason, married nor planning on it. But I understand that the coupling of some people, it's like they have that person there in the home. And luckily, I have a family that never stops FaceTiming, and there are people and friends that want to check in quite often. But then there is that period where I do want to be alone to really assess what information I took in today, how I'm feeling, and then I'm gonna go and take that time, whether it be up in the forest for a little bit and or not, and spend the time reassessing how to be of service too. I think really matters the most right now because there are so many people and families that are suffering. So it's unfathomable for the rest of us to really recognize. So that being said, how do I take what I'm good at and what craft I'm able to do and make that a little easier for those people? How do I, you know, it doesn't have to just be monetary. It can be a video of some sorts, a way to share your craft, a way to share that good that keeps circulating. Feels like nothing's happening, but that's how you get through bad things.
Yeah.
Um, and that kind of everyday push. And, you know, and then when we rise from this, like we as human beings rise from bad situations that happen, this is history in the making. And this is a new way. We're living through history yet again. I don't think you were at University of Central Florida when 2011, 9/11 happened, but I don't think you were there yet. Maybe you were.
Wait.
It was my freshman year, so no, you weren't. But I was on the top of my bunk bed watching it like live and thinking this, I'm living history right now, and how that world is going to change. And that's what's going to happen here is history is now telling you that things need to be different. And it's showing inequalities democratically across the board. It's showing flaws in healthcare systems. It's showing human support for one another and what we're capable of when we do man up. It's showing that certain things, it's showing me that buying a car right now is probably the best idea, which I'm excited about.
Hey.
Because nobody's buying them. And, you know, how to use your money wisely to save right now rather than spend. And then when you do spend, stay local, as local as possible. And people really, like, especially in Pennsylvania, red states, the idea of local just sounds very huffy and puffy. But local is really just a matter of staying in your zone and cushioning your zone and profiting your zone so your zone is healthy and safe and providing. And then that slowly expands. And that's what buying local means is, yes, there's huge chains and every now and then going in is more than fine. But when you buy from small markets, you're putting a little bit more into economies, and then you're able to really show like your town some love, and that gets your road paved again the next time, and that keeps that mom and pop shop there so they have your favorite kind of coffee. It's things that we luckily have the ability for because we're in a democratic country. And it's a huge blessing to be in this space. And I know right now there's some protests that we're under martial law, but it's like, bitch, you're not under martial law. Calm down. I just like, it just drives me bananas because my people are those people that wear the USA and the trucks and the Ram 4s, and they get angry. But when you talk to them as humans, you get through. Yeah. So I do not get sidetracked by their ranting and raving and honking, horning, and awful things they say in the Confederate flags and roll. Like, I go over this and I use comedy to do it because once you get them there, that anger starts to shed off of them because it's an exhaustive burden to be angry. To be an angry Confederate flag Nazi is exhausting, and they need releases. And once they get those releases, they'll get used to that serotonin. I mean, it's the psychology of the human brain. Laughing is just fascinating stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they didn't come up with the phrase laughter is the best medicine for nothing, you know?
For nothing.
Like, truly, it's whenever there's like a situation or something like this, or I've had a really long day, the one thing I want to do is I want to either listen to the most like ridiculous podcast or like the most irreverent comedic show and just completely detach, because you're transporting. You don't have to think about anything. You don't have to think about, I have to follow the plot line and I have to like really invest in it. No, you can just like float away, listen to it, and just like laugh about things. And then like if you want to cry in the mix, like that's fine too. But then you're back. And honestly, it's amazing. And along the same line, this is why people like myself as well, like I follow a lot of different like adorable animal accounts and things like, because I mean, how can you be upset when you're seeing like precious little puppy like with booties not know how to walk in that? It's the best thing ever. So you just have to like be able to drown out a lot of the noise and fall into the things that make you happy. And laughing and being happy are just like incredible.
Yeah, like, and it's a deep dive into the human psyche of what your own wants and needs are. I think this pause on everybody's button in life is making people go, well, what does self-care mean for me? Even if they don't realize they're saying it, they're doing it in their own way, because a lot of people are trained not to self-care. Specifically, men across the board were taught not to talk about feelings, don't cry, be a man. And that has put them in such, you know, archaic states of mind when you speak emotionally. And that pickup is coming now, where men are admitting, and I'm not just saying just men, I mean, it's just across the board was a very known thing. And self-care is taught to people like it's expensive. Self-care is taught to people like it's a waste of time. Self-care,
24-step like facial process.
yeah, that's what people
I don't have
envision.
time money for that. But that's superficial, and that's not exactly what that totally means. Yeah.
Self-care is recognizing when the sun's about to go down and knowing there's a part in your window where you can see it the best, and having like a cup of tea by that window to watch it. That's like,
which sounds delightful, by the way.
It is delightful. And when you recognize that those are your self-care wants and desires, making them more a part of your life, especially now, is going to be what gets you through. And because it is not about the week, it's about the day, down to almost even the hour, especially for those that are feeling a little bit more iffy in the state of mind, and worrying about what things are going to look like, and adding at numbers, crunching numbers. I have friends that are crunching numbers every day to see what, where, when, how, who, and I find myself doing that too, and releasing it and knowing that you can spend a certain amount this time, and it's not going to look like the way you planned. Your 2020 goals are going to be a little bit different, but different has always been challenging, and it's good for a reason, is that it's showing you things. And to be honest, it's not, we're kind of lucky, because it's like not boring at all right now. The world was hitting this like loop of bullshit, I'm not gonna lie, like between you and me, where I was like, I mean, I guess I'll just live it out till I'm 90, but some of this shit is ridiculous.
Yeah.
When COVID came, some of that shit broke apart, and this shit broke apart, and this fucking broke apart, and I was like, okay, I can fuck with this. I can fuck with this. Like, if we're, you know, we don't need an earthquake to shake things up. We need like human beings to all experience something at the same time. And an example of something really beneficial, I think, was that Andrea Bocelli performance that happened on Easter Sunday of last weekend was stunning, because it was him performing in an empty chapel. And it was for 30 tight, beautiful minutes. And whoever tuned in that moment, as the world was watching it together. And when I got off of it, I was just flabbergasted, A, by the streets of Italy being so empty, B, by his performance of Amazing Grace. And, you know, just seeing that everybody at one time was able to attend a concert together was beautiful. And that's what I'm starting to see with these concerts that are popping up. It's things that people couldn't afford their whole lives to go see Andrea Bocelli. And now you get to see these people share their craft in this time. I'm not just using them as an example, like anybody, down to David Blaine doing magic tricks on his Instagram. It's things that are more vulnerable and personable and human. And I think a lot of what we were missing as of recent was human, real connection. And it just kept getting more and more bogged down by the Twitters and the Instagrams and the computer and your 2.5 hour drive to work, or your 2.5 hour. Now people wake up and are at work.
Yeah.
And
the commute here, honestly.
The commute. I mean, you eliminate the commute out of people's lives, and you start to see a different style of happiness. Now, granted, there are workers that, you know, essential workers that are at work right now and at risk, and thinking about them and what they're putting effort into now to deliver certain things to your home. This is the time to take that dollar tip and start to use it. There are a lot of people that weren't using that for gig workers, and now that conversation is rolling, because there's a heavy weight of thank you for being out right now when you don't need to be, or you do need to be but don't want to necessarily be.
Yeah.
And providing this, that, and the other for my family, so we don't have to go out. There's this, and money isn't always the solve. Sometimes just being kind is too, but it is nice to start to see these things happen. And that's California for you. That's the bird's eye view that I'm witnessing. I'm also seeing two things. One, teenagers out necking all day long, necking, just kissing, making out,
Oh,
smooching,
kid. I was like, no, why? I mean,
necking, necking, not naked, necking.
oh,
And
okay.
then two, coyotes all over the place, coming out in the middle of the roads and just like
They own the streets.
being
Yeah.
literally owning the streets again. So there's some things that are fascinating around these parts that I get to watch firsthand.
Yeah.
Hey, Chef LA, I see you, buddy.
Um, so, I think this has been amazing because I think you've allowed for a lot of insight in both your field, how people can pivot and kind of come to just self-reflect too and see what's going on in your life, and if things are not looking the way that you want them to right now, take this time and kind of figure that out. And then so I tried to prepare this. Let's see if I can do it.
Okay.
We're gonna bring up this. All right, but then my
Wow.
thing is like covering it doesn't matter because I'll post it separately, but
This
I'll
is cool.
fill in the blanks of like what you cannot read because
Yeah, sure, of course.
um
Well,
but I asked you beforehand how people can help, maybe for you or any kind of organizations or whatever it is, and I'll allow you to kind of break it down, but just in the top bar is it's your Venmo, but it's your name, so
yeah.
the
Just
same
it's
thing.
all it's missing is an I. Yeah, it's so simple. JCCOCCOLI. There it is. Yeah. My
Beautiful.
Venmo is JC Coccoli, and I want to send that money that I am receiving for performing or talking to the people that really need it. And it's never going to be enough, but I think that's how you get the circulation of abundance going for people. And that has been happening, and I have been more than happy to help with local food banks and et cetera around my town. And the more that we Venmo, whatever it is, $1, $5, $3, $10, the more I have there that I can disperse to the families that desperately need it, that don't have the access to things like this that we do. And that's my MO. That's my help with it. And yeah, and watch the New American Road Trip. Yes.
Wait, how do I do it? There it is. There it is. So
Yeah.
the full link made it, which is the best part.
Yeah.
These are great because they're also, I mean, look, in this day and age, we've got a lot of people have time, but even if you don't, they're little bite-sized episodes. So, like 5 minutes, easy to digest, but they're fun and they're informative.
Yeah.
It hits all the bases. So that's the link for that right there. Ooh, I feel like I'm like a YouTube personality.
Subscribe,
subscribe, and all these things.
yes. And it's also on Amazon Prime.
Fabulous. So
people, if they haven't, you can put it in the Amazon Prime.
Amazing. JC, thank you for doing this. It's amazing, and so happy to see your face. It's been a minute, but I know we communicate otherwise, but this is a really fun format too. So thank you for kicking off this inaugural little session of the IRATE Unplugged. This will be posted so people can watch it later, and I'll have a follow-up with links you can swipe to check out the show. So thank you.
I'm so happy. You're more than welcome. Oh, FYI, Fiona Apple album is amazing. So listen to that.
I love her. Okay. So on that note too, check that out. Fiona, you're welcome. You can bill us. It's fine. All right. JC, love you. Stay safe. Stay well. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Squish marshmallows for life.
Yes. Bye.